Thomas's finger pointed firmly. "You are not getting on that plane." Malik didn't answer. He just stared, like someone who had seen this too many times. 30 seconds later, the silence of the airport would be torn by a name no one expected to hear. Gate 3 vibrated with automated announcements. International flight, first class, discreet and quiet luxury. Thomas took 3 steps forward. Impeccable navy blue uniform, 4 gold stripes on the shoulder, clenched jaw, blue eyes that pierced through without seeing. He blocked the passage with his outstretched arm. "That note is fake. You don't belong in that class." Deal's voice was firm, polite, poisonous. Malik stopped in the middle of the hallway, a charcoal gray suit, well cut but dull, a distressed leather briefcase in his hands, an antique, gold-colored wristwatch, scratched by time. He didn't look away. "My ticket is legitimate." Thomas smiled from the corner of his mouth. The kind of smile that doesn't warm you, that freezes you. Of course it is, but protocols exist for a reason, and I decide who boards my flight. All around, passengers began to notice. A blonde woman in a beige coat whispered something to her husband. He chuckled softly, his eyes sliding from Malik to the departure gate. A teenager in a gray sweatshirt held up his phone. The screen lit up. He began recording. The counter clerk, a young woman with her hair tied back, pretended to organize papers. She didn't look up. She didn't dare. Only an elderly woman, sitting 3 chairs away with a crocheted bag on her lap, gave a subtle nod. An almost invisible nod. Mute solidarity. Malik took a deep breath. He felt the weight of the briefcase, the cold metal of the watch against his wrist, the rough texture of the suit his father had worn to job interviews 30 years ago. For a moment, he heard his grandmother's voice. "When they don't see you, son, remember who shaped you." "I know exactly where I belong," he said, without raising his voice. Thomas narrowed his eyes. The smile faded. "Then wait here. I'll confirm some information with the security team." He turned his back. He walked slowly. Each step sounded like a warning, like a sentence. Malik stood still. He didn't back down. He didn't negotiate. He didn't lower his eyes. The cold airport light illuminated the hallway. The scent of premium coffee wafted from the adjacent lounge. The click of Thomas's heels echoed on the marble floor. The couple continued to watch. The teenager was still recording. The employee pretended not to exist, and Malik, motionless, seemed taller than he really was, because he knew something that no one there imagined. "I knew that gate, that hallway, that navy blue uniform with 4 gold stripes, all of it had an owner. And this owner was standing right there. What scared Thomas wasn't the note. It was calm. Emotional security bothers more than any scream. The intercom echoed 3 times. "First-class passengers, board immediately." Malik didn't move. His eyes scanned the hallway, the red carpet leading to the gate, the faux leather chairs where others waited comfortably, the digital display with the time flashing green. All of that should be his too, but something inside his chest tightened. It wasn't fear. It was tiredness, the kind of fatigue that comes from repeating the same scene in different places. Designer stores, expensive restaurants, meeting rooms, airports. Always the same unspoken question. Do you really belong here? Malik adjusted the watch on his wrist. The metal was warm now, as if it held a memory. It was his father's watch, bought at a thrift store in 1987. A graduation present that never happened. Dad wore that watch when he washed cars, when he fixed engines, when he handed out resumes that were never read. And before he died, he put it on Malik's wrist and simply said, "Don't let anyone make you believe that you were late." Grandmother's voice came soon after, as it always did in heavy silences. "And when they don't see you, son, remember who shaped you." Malik took a deep breath. He felt the cool air from the air conditioning slowly enter his lungs. He wasn't going to back down, not today. Thomas returned with 2 security guards, both white, both with neutral expressions and tense muscles beneath their black uniforms. "Sir, we will need you to accompany us." The voice was formal, distant, empty. Malik tilted his head slightly. "Where exactly?" "Routine check. It won't take long." The blonde couple exchanged glances. The woman bit her lip, trying to hide a smile. The teenager brought his phone closer. The camera was now focused directly on Malik. The counter clerk finally looked, for half a second. Then she looked away again. The elderly woman pursed her lips. She clutched the crocheted bag to her chest. Malik stepped forward. Not backward. Forward. He stood just inches away from Thomas. I'm not going anywhere. My flight leaves in 15 minutes, and I'm going to board. His voice was calm, firm, not angry, not pleading. Thomas blinked twice. The security guards looked at each other. Something in Malik's posture disarmed them. It wasn't arrogance. It was certainty. The kind of certainty that comes from knowing exactly who they are and where they came from. Thomas opened his mouth to respond, but hesitated. For a moment, the entire corridor seemed suspended. The sound of the intercom, the hum of the air conditioning, the pent-up breathing of the passengers around, and in the middle of it all, Malik, motionless, whole. He didn't need to shout. There was no need to prove anything, because dignity cannot be explained. It just imposes itself. The looks came from all sides. Silent, heavy, judgmental. The blonde couple looked away when Malik glanced in their direction, but they continued to watch out of the corner of their eyes, curiosity masked by discomfort. The woman whispered something to her husband. He nodded slowly. His lips curled into a half-smile that wasn't friendly. The teenager in the gray sweatshirt was still holding his phone. The screen lit up his face. He didn't blink. He just recorded, as if he were watching an episode of a reality show. Free entertainment. The counter clerk, Carla, according to the name tag pinned to her white blouse, was pretending to be reviewing papers. Her fingers had been gliding over the same page for 3 minutes. She wasn't reading anything. She was simply avoiding existence. 2 men in dark suits, probably executives, exchanged quick glances. One of them shook his head. Mute disapproval. A young woman with curly hair and a backpack stopped in the middle of the hallway. She looked at Malik. Then at Thomas. She hesitated, but said nothing. She just kept walking, her steps hurried. And then, in the corner of the waiting room, the elderly lady stood up, slowly, hands trembling slightly as they held the crochet bag. She walked until she was a few meters away from Malik. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, standing next to him. A small gesture, almost invisible, but it echoed louder than any words. Thomas frowned. The security guards looked at each other, confused. Malik felt something tighten in his throat. It wasn't pity. It was recognition. That woman knew. Maybe not his story, but she knew the pain. The unjustified humiliation, the weight of being judged before opening one's mouth. She didn't need to be there, but she was. And that changed everything. The teenager lowered his phone for a second. The screen went dark. Carla stopped pretending to work. She really looked for the first time. The blonde couple looked away. It wasn't funny anymore, because that lady's presence turned the corridor into a courtroom. And there, in front of everyone, it became clear who was really on trial. Thomas cleared his throat. He tried to regain control. Madam, the situation does not involve you. Please return to your seat. She didn't move. He just looked at him. A tired look, but firm. I'll stay here, she said, her voice hoarse but clear. Thomas opened his mouth. He closed it. He didn't know what to do. The security guards took a step back. Malik took a deep breath. He looked at the woman. She returned his gaze and nodded once, almost imperceptibly. You are not alone. The message came without sound, but he heard it. The hallway remained tense, but something had changed, because now there were 2 of them. And 2 is sometimes enough to dismantle an entire system. If you've ever witnessed something like this, comment below. Isolation only works when no one dares to break the silence. The smell of kerosene invaded Malik's memory. Strong, penetrating. It stuck to the skin like a second layer. He was 8 years old. The hangar was freezing that morning. The concrete was cold under bare feet. The disabled plane in the center looked like a sleeping giant. The father, in his grease-stained blue overalls, was wiping the cracked leather seats with a cloth. "Come here, son. Help Dad here." Malik ran over. He grabbed the smaller cloth. He began scrubbing the armrests. The father worked in silence for a few minutes. Then he stopped. He looked at the empty cockpit. "Do you know what I see when I look at this?" Malik shook his head. "I see where we can't sit yet. But you're going to fly without asking permission." His father's hands were covered in black grease. Calloused, strong, hands that had never held a diploma, but had held the whole world so his son could dream. Malik never forgot that phrase, flying without asking permission. Now, standing at Gate 3, he touched the watch on his wrist, the same watch his father wore while cleaning airplanes, fixing engines, handing out resumes that were never read. The same watch he put on Malik's wrist before he left. The metal was still hot, as if it kept memory. Malik closed his eyes for a second. He felt the weight of the leather briefcase, the rough fabric of the suit, the cold airport air. He wasn't there by luck. It wasn't there by concession. He was there because someone cleaned planes so he could fly them, because someone bent his spine so he could walk upright, because someone accepted no so he could say yes. Grandmother's voice echoed again, as it always did in moments of heavy silence. "When they don't see you, son, remember who shaped you." Malik opened his eyes. Thomas was still there. The security guards too. The blonde couple. The teenager. Carla at the counter. Everyone waiting for him to back down, to lower his head, to accept the place they wanted to impose. But Malik smiled inwardly, a smile that no one saw, but that he felt, because he wasn't alone in that hallway. Father was there. Grandmother was there. Everyone who came before was there. And they didn't clean planes, bend spines, and swallow humiliation so that he would give up now. Malik adjusted the folder in his hand. He took a deep breath, and he looked directly at Thomas. "I'm not going anywhere, because this is my place." His voice did not tremble, didn't go up, didn't fail. He just stated. Thomas blinked twice. The security guards exchanged glances. The elderly woman beside Malik clutched the crocheted bag to her chest and smiled, a discreet smile, but proud, because there, in that cold, hostile corridor, it wasn't just Malik who was resisting. It was an entire lineage. Some dreams don't ask permission. They just take off. Thomas took 2 steps back, not out of fear, out of strategy. He reached for the radio clip to his belt. He pressed the side button. The click echoed dully down the hallway. "Central, this is Thomas, Gate 3. I need the supervisor immediately." His voice was calm, professional, venomous, the kind of calm that precedes planned storms. Malik didn't move. He just watched. Thomas put away the radio. He adjusted his navy tie. He ran a hand through the graying hair at his temples. Then he smiled. It wasn't a real smile. It was a mask. "Sir, I understand your frustration, but protocols exist for a reason. We don't want any problems on board." He paused. He looked around. He made sure everyone was listening. "Some profiles destabilize the environment. I'm sure you understand." The words fell like poison disguised as courtesy. "Some profiles." I didn't say you. I said some profiles. As if talking about objects, categories, statistical threats. The blonde couple exchanged glances. The woman nodded slightly. Mute agreement. The teenager raised his phone again. The camera focused. Carla, the counter clerk, lowered her eyes, but she didn't say anything. The elderly woman pressed her lips together. She clenched her fists around her purse. Malik felt heat rise up his neck, but it wasn't anger. It was something worse. It was the recognition of a pattern that was too old. Polite racism, institutional prejudice, violence without touch, the kind of cruelty that comes wrapped in protocols, in security policies, in nothing personal. Malik looked at Thomas's badge. Captain Thomas A. Brennan, Sky Dominion Airlines. Then he looked at the sign above the gate. Sky Dominion, flying into the future. He almost smiled, because Thomas didn't know. He didn't know who was right in front of him. I didn't know that blue and gold logo, that inspiring slogan. That entire company had an owner, and this owner was being kicked out of his own plane. Malik adjusted the strap of his briefcase on his shoulder. He took a deep breath. The cold air from the air conditioning slowly entered his lungs. He wouldn't scream. He wouldn't curse. He wouldn't lose control, because he had already learned one thing. The invisible cage only works when you believe in it. Thomas continued speaking. Something about internal regulations, about company rights, about decisions that needed to be respected. But Malik wasn't listening anymore. He was watching as Thomas built his own trap, watching as the security guards began to look less confident, watching as Carla looked at the computer, her fingers trembling over the keyboard, watching how the elderly lady stood firm beside him. And then Malik realized he didn't need to defend himself. He just had to wait, because the truth, when it comes, does not ask for permission. Just crush. Thomas finished speaking. He crossed his arms, satisfied with himself. So, what's it going to be? Are you going to cooperate, or will we need to take more severe measures? Malik looked him straight in the eye, and for the first time, he smiled. A small smile, almost imperceptible, but loaded with something Thomas couldn't identify. Certainty. The trap was set. But who was really trapped? An employee ran down the hall. Quick steps. Heavy breathing. Wrinkled red uniform. He held a tablet in his left hand. The screen glowed brightly against his chest. He stopped 10 feet from Thomas. He looked at Malik, then back at Thomas. "Captain, we need to talk. Now." His voice trembled. It wasn't fear. It was urgency. Thomas frowned. "I'm dealing with a situation here, Daniel. It can wait." "No, sir, you can't." Daniel moved closer. He lowered his voice. "But not enough. I just received a message from the headquarters about the passenger." He pointed discreetly at Malik. Thomas looked at the tablet, then at Daniel, then at Malik. The color drained from his face. It wasn't gradual. It was instantaneous, as if someone had turned off a light inside. His shoulders twitched. His eyes blinked 3 times in succession. He opened his mouth. No sound came out. Daniel continued, now almost whispering, but still audible. "Sir, he is the—" Thomas raised his hand. He interrupted. I understood. His voice was different now. Cracked. Dry. He tucked the radio into his belt. He adjusted his tie. He ran a hand through his hair. Automatic movements, almost desperate. The 2 security guards exchanged glances. They noticed the change. They took a step back. The blonde couple stopped whispering. They watched in silence. The teenager brought his cell phone closer. The camera was now capturing everything. Carla, at the counter, looked up for the first time and froze. The elderly lady clutched her purse to her chest and smiled. A smile of someone who recognizes justice is coming. Malik didn't move, just watched. He watched Thomas crumble inside. He watched the security guards retreat. He watched the entire hallway change its tone. Because the truth doesn't need to be shouted, she just arrives. Thomas took a deep breath. He turned to Malik. He tried to smile. He couldn't. "Sir, there's been a misunderstanding. Can we—" Malik took 2 steps forward. Not rushed, not aggressive, just firm. He stood face to face with Thomas, just inches away. His eyes were calm, but relentless. "I think it's time you knew who I am." Malik's voice was low, controlled, but each word weighed a ton. Thomas swallowed hard. He didn't answer. Daniel took another step back. The security guards looked at each other. They began to understand. The blonde couple looked away. Now they didn't want to see anymore. The teenager held his cell phone with both hands. He didn't want to miss anything. Carla covered her mouth with her hand. Her eyes widened. The elderly lady closed her eyes for a second and breathed a sigh of relief. Malik adjusted the briefcase on his shoulder. He looked at the sign above the gate. Sky Dominion. Flying into the future. Then he looked back at Thomas. And for the first time, he really smiled. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, pure irony. Because sometimes, the greatest weapon is not strength. It's just the truth waiting for the right moment. Thomas tried to speak. His mouth moved, but no words came out, because he had just realized the cage he built had only one person inside, and it wasn't Malik. Sometimes the silence before the truth is louder than any scream. Thomas tried to regain control. He straightened his shoulders, cleared his throat, forced a professional smile. "Sir, with all due respect, I don't care who you are. Rules are rules, and I have a responsibility to ensure the safety of this flight." His voice tried to sound firm, but it was trembling at the edges. Malik did not respond immediately. He just opened the leather folder. The zipper slid down slowly. The sound echoed in the tense silence. He pulled out a folder of documents, thick paper, letterhead, sealed. He placed it on the counter next to Carla. She looked. Her eyes widened. Thomas took a step forward. Reluctantly, but curious, Malik turned the first page. Official documents, signatures, gold stamps, and at the top, in large, clear letters, Malik Okoro, Chief Executive Officer, Sky Dominion Airlines. The entire hallway seemed to suck in the air. Thomas froze. His eyes scanned the documents. Once, twice, 3 times, as if he couldn't process what he was seeing. Daniel, the employee in the red uniform, took 2 steps back. He covered his mouth with his hand. The security guards looked at each other. They slumped their shoulders. They backed away. The blonde couple looked away. The woman clutched her purse to her lap. The husband nervously adjusted his tie. The teenager was still recording, but now he was holding the phone with both hands, trembling. Carla got up from her chair. She put her hand to her chest. The elderly woman closed her eyes and smiled, a smile of relief, of justice. Malik left the documents open on the counter. He turned to Thomas. His eyes were calm, but relentless. "I'm Malik Okoro, CEO of Sky Dominion. This is my company." The words fell like hammers. Each syllable weighed. Thomas opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I didn't know. I was just following. "Protocol," Malik interrupted. His voice was still low, but sharp. "What protocol allows you to judge passengers by their skin color?" Thomas Pallidasu. "It wasn't that. I never—" "So what happened?" Silence. Thomas didn't answer, because there was no answer. In the background, a plastic cup fell. The sound echoed too loud. Someone gasped. A woman whispered something to her companion. The entire hallway watched. It was no longer a private scene. It was public. It was court, and Thomas was in the dock. Malik didn't shout. He didn't curse. He didn't need to. Just stood there, firm, whole. His dignity was higher than any accusation. Daniel approached timidly. "Mr. Okoro, we didn't know. Please accept our sincerest apologies." Malik looked at him, then at Thomas, then at the entire hallway. Apologies don't erase humiliation, but acknowledgement is a start. Thomas lowered his head. For the first time, the security guards turned away, ashamed. The blonde couple got up and left discreetly. They wanted to disappear. The teenager turned off his cell phone and put it in his pocket. He no longer wanted to be an accomplice. Carla lowered her eyes. Her hands trembled on the keyboard. The elderly woman approached Malik. She lightly touched his arm. "Thank you," she whispered. Malik nodded respectfully, and then he took the documents back. He put them in the folder. He zipped them up. He looked at Thomas one last time. "I hope you learned something today." Thomas didn't answer. He just nodded. Defeated. If it were you, how would you react? Respect is not begged for. It is inherited. The employees began to approach, slowly, cautiously, as if entering sacred territory. Daniel was the first. He stopped 2 meters away from Malik. He bowed his head slightly. "Mr. Okoro, on behalf of the entire team, I apologize. This should never have happened." His voice was sincere, but tinged with shame. 3 flight attendants appeared in the aisle. Impeccable blue uniforms, wide-eyed, open-mouthed. One of them, Rachel, according to the gold badge, covered her mouth with her hand. "Oh my God," she whispered. Another employee, younger, with curly hair and round glasses, approached with a badge in his hands. "Sir, this is your honorary executive card. I deeply regret what happened." He held out his badge with both hands. Respectful, almost reverent. Malik took the badge. He looked at it, then at the young man. "What's your name?" "Marcus, sir." "Thank you, Marcus." Marcus nodded. He took 2 steps back. He couldn't hide his small smile. Silent pride. All around, the entire corridor had changed. The blonde woman who had laughed at first now lowered her head. She couldn't look at Malik. Belated shame. The teenager recording everything put his phone back in his pocket, choking, as if he'd just grasped the weight of what he'd witnessed. Carla, the counter clerk, stood up. She walked over to Malik. Her eyes were red. "Mr. Okoro, I should have said something. I knew it was wrong. I'm sorry." Her voice broke at the end. Malik looked at her, not with anger, with understanding. Silence is also a choice. "Carla, remember that." She nodded. She wiped away her tears with the back of her hand. Thomas stood still, alone, isolated. No one approached him. No one defended him. He tried to speak. He opened his mouth, but there were no words, because there are no words to undo what has been done. The elderly woman walked up to Malik. She held his hand with both of hers. "You made your grandfather proud today, son." Malik smiled. For the first time, a real smile. "Thank you, ma'am." She squeezed his hand one last time. Then she returned to her seat. Satisfied, Daniel picked up the radio. He spoke softly but firmly. "Gate 3 cleared. Mr. Okoro authorized for immediate boarding. First class. Seat A." The intercom echoed. "Mr. Malik Okoro, priority boarding authorized." His name echoed throughout the entire airport. Loud, clear, respectful. Malik adjusted the briefcase on his shoulder. He looked at the gate, then down the hallway. To all those people who, just minutes ago, judged you, humiliated you, excluded you, and now they watched in silence. He didn't need to say anything else, because his presence said it all. Marcus, the young employee, led the way. He held the boarding gate. "This way, sir." Malik walked, firm steps, head held high, dignity intact, and behind him, an entire runner learned a lesson they would never forget. Share this story so more people can gain strength. They apologized. But who returns stolen dignity? Malik walked across the boarding bridge. The hallway was narrow, white walls, cold fluorescent lighting. The sound of footsteps echoed softly against the rubber floor. He stopped in his tracks. He turned around. He looked back. Gate 3 was still visible. Thomas stood there, motionless. Carla had returned to the counter. Daniel was organizing papers. The elderly woman waved discreetly. Malik took a deep breath, and then he spoke. He didn't shout. He just stated, "My grandfather cleaned these hallways. I run them now." His voice echoed through the boarding bridge. Firms, Clara, ancestral. It wasn't arrogance. It was a declaration of existence. Marcus, the young employee next to him, felt a lump in his throat. He lowered his eyes. He smiled discreetly. Malik turned again. He continued walking, got on the plane. The interior was luxurious. Beige leather armchairs, dark wood accents, the scent of premium coffee, soft, golden lighting. First row, seat A. He placed the briefcase in the overhead compartment. He sat down slowly. He adjusted his belt. He touched the watch on his wrist. The metal was still warm. He closed his eyes. For a moment, he heard it all again. Father's voice. "You're going to fly without asking permission." Grandmother's voice. "When they don't see you, remember who shaped you." The smell of kerosene. The cold hangar, hands covered in grease, everything that brought him there. Malik opened his eyes. A flight attendant approached, a sincere smile. Professional. "Mr. Okoro, can I offer you something?" "Just water, please." She nodded and walked away. Malik looked out the window. The sky was clear, deep blue, cloudless. And then He heard a voice behind him. "Daddy, look." He turned his head slightly. 3 rows back, a black boy, no more than 7 years old, pointed at Malik, his eyes shining. The boy's father, in a simple suit and blue tie, smiled proudly. "What's up, son?" "He's just like us, Dad. He's in first class." The father held his son's hand and squeezed it affectionately. "Yes, son, and one day, you will be too." The boy smiled, huge, hopeful. Malik felt something tighten in his chest. It wasn't sadness, it was purpose, because he wasn't there just for himself. I was there for everyone who came before, and for everyone who would come after. For the grandfather who cleaned airplanes, for the father who repaired engines, for the grandmother who taught dignity, and for that boy back there who now knew it was possible. Malik turned around. He adjusted himself in his chair. He took a deep breath. The plane began to move, slowly, surely. And as he took off, Malik looked out the window one last time. He saw the airport shrink, the lights flicker. The world below followed its rhythm, but something had changed. Because today, in that hostile corridor, before those judging eyes, a truth was reaffirmed. Respect is not asked for, it is earned. Dignity is not granted, it is carried. And the future doesn't wait for permission, it just takes off. If this story touched you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell and share it so that more people can reflect and become stronger. Resisting sometimes is just continuing.